And this is how you rig your Garfish or Ballyhoo for your little black marlin or your pelagic species.
G'day Wallaby Dick, and welcome to a fantastic little informational piece about how to rig your Garfish for game fishing. So this is really suited for when you're fishing your 8 kilo line class, and there is certainly a method to it, and you're about to find out exactly how to do it thanks to George, the president of the Sunshine Coast Game Fishing Club. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Here we've got a well-rigged Garfish. All right, now this Garfish is rigged for our sort of conditions here out of Mooloolaba and up at Fraser, and predominantly really any light tackle fishing. You see it a lot over in South America, but what it essentially is doing is replacing your standard lure with a J hook, and you're presenting it with a bait that swims quite well, and you're going to be using a circle hook. If you have a look at that very closely, you'll understand that that's obviously coming in a lot more, meaning that you're going to stay connected to your fish a lot longer and a lot better. The circle hook just really simply goes into that. So if you have a look at that O-ring there, the hook just pops straight in, and there you go. So you're looking at a bait there that will swim absolutely straight every single time. And the thing about the circle hook is that you need to give him some free spools. So you need to let that bait go down into his stomach, and then that bait's going to slowly start coming out with the line pressure that you apply, getting that caught into the corner of the jaw there. So first thing you're going to need is you're going to need a good pair of shears, a good pair of Snips. These ones are good. They rust out on me, but they're still pretty bloody good, so that's all right. I go down to a sinker. They're about a 3/4 ounce or a 1 ounce. These are a glow sinker. You'll have a look at my other selection here. You can run numerous other things of non-glow, different coloured glow, circles, whatever it may be. But I found this one gets into the gar a little bit better up into his gills. So next thing you're going to need is you're going to need a ringer swivel. This is a ringer swivel here. I use the size 1. I found that they're really good for our light tackle. As you can see here, they're 6.0 to 9.0, so they're the go. I've always found them. You can find them at one of our sponsors, Welsies.
And just a quick one on that ringer swivel, like we showed you in that demonstration, that gives you that rubber element on top. So it gives you that full 360-degree movement to stop your bait from just destroying itself when it's in the spread.
I've caught multiple fish on the one ringer swivel before. So what I do is I get a little bit of copper wire here. I buy this from J-Car. You get a nice big roll and you can cut it to whatever size you want. What you're going to do is you're going to be looking to, the bigger the better, right? Because you can always cut it off at the end. I'm cutting it there. Just a simple, about 30 centimeters, 45 centimeters worth of copper there. And then your ringer swivel here, you're going to be going through the opposite end of the swivel, and you're going to leave about that sort of much. And you're going to bring him over, and you're just going to start twisting. So very simple to your haywire twist that you use for mackerel and all other toothy critters. I just run that all the way down. Now there's lots of different ways you can do this. I've just been told recently that you can use a drill and drill it down and get it nice and firm, but obviously don't have a drill out at sea very often, so you've got to use what you got. And I've had this roll now for quite a while, so you can buy one of those a season normally if you don't catch as many fish as I do. So and then you're looking, what I do is I'll get half a dozen or a dozen of these rigged up before I even go to sea, and then you've got them all rigged. They're very simple, they're very easy like that. Please make sure, quick tip for the young player, is make sure that your last little bit there is down nice and firm. And even if you need to get yourself a pair of pliers and you need to squash that down, because what that's going to do is, I'll show you in a minute, that doesn't go down through the hole that you're going to do very good, and it's going to pop him open, create more water through it, and blow your bait out a lot quicker. So the whole point of this is to not have your bait washed out, meaning you're not going to have to re-rig every 5 minutes, and meaning that you can keep your bait fresher longer and they look more enticing to a fish. So let's get started into the prepping. All right, so that's your stock standard Garfish there. For us to get him looking like this, it starts with this, okay? You're going to grab your little pair of Snips, and we're going to start trimming off his pec fins, okay? with having his pec fins on, I've found sometimes makes the bait start to circle and start to spin in the water because he doesn't have an aerodynamic little part there. Just a little 1%er that I like to use. The next step is to start getting that eye out. So I use the eye, I get the bait needle into the base of the eye and pop out the other side like that. Cool. So that means when I push this out, yummy good stuff comes out and you can see that that whole eye comes out in one. And moving on to the second piece, and we're just going to grab underneath the eye on that side and we're going to pull him out as well. Get rid of all the yucky juices and things that might freeze bad or start to cause that bait to spin. So now you've got yourself an eye that is eyeless, and you're going to be sticking your little bait needle in, open him open, and so you've got a little bit good area to work with. All right, so our next step is, guys, is you're going to find where we're going to do the hole for your copper wire. Now, the easiest way to find this, I find, is that when you open his beak up like that, you're going to find that he has a little straight line that runs across there. Now, anywhere forward of that is a no-go. Cool? Now, you're going to look at your eyes and you're going to run a line across there between where the eyes start. Anywhere back from there is a no-go. So you're really working with a very small sort of area in here, right behind that hinge and just in front of the eyes. Now, I was just saying before, you get a little bit of a scale there and you'll see him pop open there. Now that scale, always when you're at sea, if you don't pop that off, he's going to make you shine off to a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, causing your bait to swim on the side a little. So the more important, this is what I would arguably say the most important part of the whole bait rigging is to get your first toe point area nice and perfect. So what I'm going to do here is I've moved that scale, I'm going to get right into the middle and I'm looking at that sort of area there. So right where the tip of that bait needle is where I'm looking to put my bait needle down to get my copper wire going. So let's get that going now. You'll notice how I've got my two fingers like this, one on either side of the bait needle. And the reason being is we're not pushing to try and get that needle through. If you're pushing really hard, you're going to start to break the bait around the outside of it. You're going to start crushing the gills. This part's going to break between the eyes and the bait's not going to be able to be used. So what I'm doing is with those, I'm essentially pushing the garfish and pulling the garfish. I'm not pushing the bait needle. I'm pulling the garfish up and down the bait needle, giving it a nice perfect hole there for my copper wire to go into. So our next step here is to get our copper wire that we did our twist with just before, get our garfish that's nice and prepped now, and we're going to put that bit of copper wire straight back through that hole that we just made, and that's going to pull him through nice and easy. And now you're going to get to this little section here. See how that's turned on himself there? Make it so it's all nice and flush, very uniform. And before, when I was making sure that that little bit of copper wire was pushed down nice and tight, this is the reason why. If it was sticking out a bit and I'm trying to push that in, what you're doing is you're opening a hole up on that area, causing that to not be nice and firm into the gar, and it's going to move all over the place, causing your gar to start to wash out, swim erratically, and not look like the natural bait profile that we are looking to try and create here. So I'm going to turn that garfish upside down so that that's all nice and in a straight line now. I'm going to pull him up nice and tight until that copper goes in, and just before, like I did with the bait needle, I'm going to do with my fingers. So now when I've just got that through just to the base of that ringer swivel, I'm going to grab these two fingers here and I'm going to put them on either side of the gar. This bit of copper wire, I'm going to get him around in my hand like that, kind of creating a bit of a toe point, a bit of a firm bit. Now put my fingers back to where they were before, and I'm going to pull that wire just so that little bottom part of the swivel is just sitting inside of the gar. Now let's get it done and I'll show you what it looks like at the end here. Push him in nice and firm. There we go. So see how he's sitting in there nice and tight? There's no movement on the outside. Just like this one here. He's nice and firm sitting in there. Now throughout the day, sometimes that will pop out. And the reason why that'll pop out is because the hole is either too big or that the gar was rigged incorrectly in the first place. So the next part is this is going to be what we call a swim bait. Now for it to be a swim bait, it needs to be able to be below the surface. That's what these little sinkers are for here. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our bit of copper wire that's gone through the bait. We're going to go through our sinker here. And we're going to run him all the way down to the end. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use this little finger here and we're going to open his gill. We're going to use this thumb here and we're going to open the other gill. Now always be careful to do this very softly, especially if you have a very defrosted gar. You're going to blow the gills out, you're going to break here, you're going to destroy the bait, and it's not going to be useful. So do it once and do it properly. Get that up into his nice little chin area. With the back part of this, you're going to run around the back side and you're going to run around the other back side. Now I'm going to clamp that together so I can reposition my hand. I grab the other side of the copper wire. It's going to go back through there and come out the other side nice and easy. Now in doing this, making sure that your wire is going to be nice and straight and not get kinks is the secret to a nice good swimming bait. Now you're going to hold him up like that, and if he sits nice and straight, you know for a fact that that thing's going to run straight every time. So I'll swing him around for you. You notice how that's gone behind the gills and I've just come back through. Now that's pretty much the essential part of rigging that bait. Now what we're going to start to do is we're going to start closing up the gills and the front part. Now what we've got to do is we've got to stop the water going through the bait, washing the bait out, causing his guts to come through here, coming through here, breaking in half, and being able to make that bait last just a little bit longer. So what we're going to do first is, now that we're through there, we need to start working on the back end. So I'm going to come through the eye very simply like this, always making sure that your copper wire is not kinked, and we're going to pull him quite firm but not over the top, just so everything is nice and tugged together. Okay, now once that goes through the eye, I'm going to come out the back. So I've come through the eye, coming out the back, behind the sinker, closing his gills. Okay, and we're going to go back through the eye again. Always keeping your wire not kinked. So now what we've done is we've attached him to the front, we've closed his gills at the back. Now we've got to close his mouth so no water gets through there, so he can't scream at the fish that he's about to get eaten. We come in front and we come behind. So I've gone in front of the ringer swivel and I've come underneath my side. Now I'm going to go to the other side, creating a crisscross. So I've just gone underneath, I'm just wrapping around, and I'm just going straight back to the crisscross. Believe it or not, we're going to go back through the eye again. Pull him out the other side. Now you don't want to pull this too firm, but you want to make sure that that's nice and firm. That closes his mouth and that stops that ringer swivel from moving forward on the bait, creating a little bit of a closed circuit. Now this is going to go in line with that one there, just because of my OCD, no other reason. And it's going to start to wrap around his bill. Now this guy already had a bit of a deformed bill, but we're going to grab our snips, and the bill's normally out to here. You're going to trim him off so that that bill's nice and snug. You're going to trim him off here, and then you're going to finish wrapping that up and over. So that bait there, he's been rigged with a ringer swivel onto the top. He's got his little sinker sitting underneath him to create the swim bait. Then you've closed off his gills, you've closed off the front, you've closed his mouth, and you've wrapped that off on the bill. That's what I call a swim bait. Now before this goes in the water, and only before it goes in the water, there's a backbone section that is the best to pop off, and all of his waste inside of him too. So the best way to do that is, you don't want to get your hands over the garfish very often because it'll lose its shine. So the most you can do around this sort of area, the better. You're gonna flip him upside down, grab your hand here and just push down, causing that waste to come out everywhere. Now that was great, that one. You're gonna get down to about these pec fins here, these little fins, about here, and you're gonna pop his backbone. So in the line of this little lateral line, you're gonna push and you're gonna see this come off his backbone. See that? And all the way down to his tail. So now that bait is gonna be a lot more mobile in his tail. The reason why we don't do it all the way up to the head is because of his guts and stuff up in there, and there's cavities in there where there's flesh back to here, but there's cavities in there, which means that that bait is gonna squish and pretty much turn to crap. So after you've done that, you're gonna grab him here and here, not on the body because you're gonna lose his shine, and you're gonna start to swim him like you would a normal bait. You're gonna feel all of his backbones crunching and his other bits and pieces. And that is essentially how your bait's gonna swim. See how he's a lot more loose there? This one here I haven't done yet because he's gonna stay in my freezer. You can see he just swings side to side, where that one is gonna swim a lot better. I have about my bait, I pull him out, I pop this ringer swivel off this guy here, I pop the circle hook off, he just pulls straight out in an ideal world. Cool. Now that bait's still good, you can still run that bait again, but just by having that circle hook and that ringer swivel system is just incredible. Swap him over into there, just straight through, it's very, very straightforward. Now that's a bait, that's about to catch a marlin. Put that onto your line, up to your swivel, and I run him in nice and short and keep him so I can see him. A lot of the time you will have a fish come up on your teaser, and he'll come up all hot on your teaser, and he'll sit back down for a second, and as he sits back down he looks over to his right or his left, and he can normally see this guy swimming right behind the teaser like a bait getting just dragged out of a bait school. He'll come over and he'll go bang, he'll whack it, you'll feel the whack, it's normally pretty tight, come down into his stomach, you're gonna free spill the bait. 9 times out of 10 that fish is still up in the spread looking for something else to eat, right? So you can have it in free spill, this bait is down in his throat, but the marlin will still be swimming around the back of the boat looking for something else to eat. So that's very important to keep an eye on what you're doing if you're running circle hooks and you're trying to let that fish swallow that bait. He'll swallow it, he'll come down, you'll come up nice and tight. If the fish is in nice and tight and you've got a lot of line out, you're creating line belly, which is creating drag, pulling that out of his mouth, out of his stomach, into the corner of his mouth. That'll all pop off, and fingers crossed, you can either put a tag in him or you can bring him home for some food. But either way, that's my way of rigging a ringer swivel on a garfish.